Welcome to the Upfront Podcast with me, your host, Nina Mueller, where you'll get your weekly dose of upfront discussions with people from all around the world. Hello, everyone. On this episode, I will be speaking with Melisa Özçakir. I hope I didn't butcher her name. Melisa is originally from Istanbul in Turkey, has then studied in Turkey, and continued her studies after she moved to Israel 5 years ago. She received her second degree in psychology from the Tel Aviv University. Nowadays, Melisa is a co-founder of Alpha Space and works as a meditation facilitator and therapeutic self-empowerment counselor. She has started her own meeting space called Inner Science Discussions, where she conducts what she calls inner science meetings, in which she is working with her clients on the science of cultivating oneself as a deliberate, self-responsible contributor and creator. Her work nowadays includes a variety of fields such as neuroscience, biochemistry, psychoanalysis, philosophy, and quantum mechanics. And now let's jump right into it.
Hi, Nina. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, me too. So you have a very interesting story. You've grown up in Turkey, right?
Yes, I'm from Istanbul.
What made you move to Israel in the first place?
To continue to study, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never been to Turkey. How is Israel different in comparison to Turkey? Like for you personally?
It's mentally much more free for me about thinking academically, also producing knowledge for research, for speaking your own truth. Kind of. Really, I see that in the city.
You actually studied psychology. Did you always want to work in that field?
My first university was history major, actually. And during that undergraduate program, I was glad that I belonged to that department. And already I was interested in existentialism, neuroscience, human nature, history of religion, archaeology. So it was a gross academic variety for me that I was curious about. And that first I was interested in archaeology, but then I thought actual daily problems and well-being of all of us is much more practical to work on, to research on. So that's why I turned to psychology.
So when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that you find questioning like one's own belief system and thought patterns is important. How so? Can you elaborate on that?
In my meetings, we focus on giving some silence to brain regularly, aka meditation. And afterwards, when we discuss, so naturally beliefs and thought patterns and behavioral structures, let's say maybe, occur onto the surface. And if someone has an emotional discord about any aspect of their life, this discord is mostly originated from their dysfunctional beliefs on those things. So beliefs play a crucial role in our overall well-being, satisfaction from our own selves or from the world. I mean, it's all together, and it creates our well-being level.
Right. Do you think people are in general aware of their thought patterns and like belief systems, or is that something that is more like subconscious or unconscious that you have to like detect through working on yourself?
Generally, overall, when questioned or when somebody asks a person about their approach or attitude to things, people then start realizing what they really think about those things. I mean, we are speaking so abstract right now. We don't have a clear example to refer to, but still, about any subject, any aspect of their lives, if questioned properly, people see that sometimes their belief shape things. And you made the distinction of subconscious and unconscious, which is vital in this discussion, I guess, because things in the subconscious can ascend to conscious, and people can be aware of them. Unconscious is name on it, unconscious. They won't be conscious. It needs very much effort to make them conscious. So our first purpose is go first to the subconscious and what can be the underlying beliefs or thinking patterns or mental habits in that person's mind.
And how do you, like, I know this is a very theoretical discussion so far, but how do you in practice, like in your everyday work, how do you get to those like systems or beliefs and all that?
This is the very reason, actually, why I focus on sitting quiet, aka again meditation. If
Mm-hmm.
we think of ourselves as onions, really, we have many layers of self. And what we think of ourselves is the most outer layer, but we have a very core in the very inside, if we think of an onion. And giving some silence to the brain regularly creates space to slowly, as a process, separate those layers from the outermost to the inner, to the closer to the core, to see our own layers of self and to be able to embrace all of what we are, even if we like our parts, even if we don't like, because we are composed of many selves.
Yeah.
Why? That's why I see the practice of meditation as the core of any kind of healing process, because that is what opens the possibility to open out to ourselves, to not anyone else, to ourselves only, to open up the layers and see what we feel, where we began feeling that way in our history, maybe why. The thing is, actually, sometimes we don't have answers to those questions about our history. When did I begin to think this way? There may not be any answer, but at least that person is aware that somewhere in his or her history, this process of believing in such thing began, and right now it is still active. And we do have the ability to modify those facts, those historical facts, because it is made possible for the fact that brain is plastic, neuroplasticity it is called. Because it
Mm-hmm.
is plastic and because it is available for change, modification, which is much more healthier when done slowly. But things can change. The perception of self can change. What we call self can change. So how we contribute to our realities can change.
You said before our interview, you actually said something about like that you don't believe in this new stream of let's call it toxic positivity. I think you
Definitely.
actually use that term too.
Yes,
Um,
definitely not. Yeah.
is that why? Because you feel that it is more a profound work on oneself than this sort of universal law of attraction that people talk of nowadays?
My reasons
Mhm.
for kind of not really believing or supporting the New Age literature, let's say, has two aspects to it. First, it's to me unrealistic that somebody always has to smile, always have to be happy. The world is pink, send it to the universe and it will come back. These may be real, but they are not grounded on daily actuality. We are humans and we have a lot of emotions that we have to express, that we have to experience. We can be sad sometimes. We can be depressed for 2 days and then get normal on the third day. We are humans. I mean, we cannot always be a certain way. That's unrealistic. I don't believe that we do create all the aspects of our reality. We are not the creators of our realities. First, because in the very beginning, I believe that we didn't choose to which family to be born into or to which conditions to be born into. That's first. And second, I think all we create for our realities is contribution to our own realities, to our own individual and collective, definitely.
So you're saying that we can have an influence like on our life as we see it, on ourself, like by working on us and accepting all different parts of ourselves. Do you think that there's a general way you can work towards happiness and empowerment? I'm not sure whether you've heard of that concept, but there's this thing called law of attraction, which seems to be picked up by a lot of people working in the field of psychology. Do you think that actually works, or is there a more individualistic approach that has to be used in that field?
Basically, I think that there is such a law, just like gravity. That's, I think, a fact. But we attract what we really feel inside. That's something to do with the emotional state of someone. I mean, what I try to say we contribute is for any unoccurred event. It could be a simple exam, or it could be a marriage proposal, or it can be I want a house and I want a house to be on the third floor. Anything that we desire for our lives. There is a observer effect. There is something called observer effect in quantum mechanics, which says that the observed is affected by the observer. This is always, everywhere, everyhow the case. With us also. If I think that finding a house that I would like is hard, I don't give it any chance to be easy as I would like to. Or if I think that the person may reject me in my proposal before I propose even, it's an unoccurred future event, right? And we want it to be what we like it to be. We want to hear a yes to a proposal. And it is an option that you can be rejected, definitely. But if you choose to focus on the possibility that you wouldn't like, which is rejection, you contribute to it in the way that you wouldn't really like to. We just want people to know that they do affect what they observe. What they feel about things do contribute to how they occur. I mean, this definitely doesn't mean that I said the right words and I thought the right way and the thing will be exactly as I ordered it to be. No way. No way. You don't expect the world to be like you want. You just care with how you contribute to it. So simple. Do I make the right contribution right now for the reality that I want?
I think our listeners will appreciate that thought to reflect upon themselves, not to make this too abstract of a discussion. But do you think it is actually more of the perception of a different outcome? So let's say at the talking about the example of looking for a house. So you want a 3-story building or whatever it is with a garden and a pool. So if you actually do believe that you'll find something that it suits your needs and everything you're looking for, eventually, will the outcome change, you think? Is it only going to be the perception of the person that will be more positive anyways because they have thought they will eventually reach that goal? Or is it an actual factual change in what the result is?
My own perception on this is from very minor daily decisions and processes, like finding a place to sit on the bus, or that the cafe is empty and you can just directly grab your coffee and go out, from wanting a house. These are two. I mean, the intensity of the goals are different, right? That's we can agree on. My perception on those things is never the outcome itself. It is really how I contribute to what I want.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I definitely have to reflect upon that too, because I've read the Secret, and I think the concept is a very interesting one about the law of attraction, which I guess is very theoretical for a lot of people. But when you put it that way, yeah.
And unrealistic, yeah.
I think if like the way you've actually put it makes it much more realistic and gives it more of an individualistic as opposed to like a universal sort of outcome.
Yes, because very practically, if we want to summarize the big law of attraction and you create the world you want, send it to the universe and it will come back. These, on a very practical basis, think positive and it will be positive. Okay, if my boss doesn't reject me, I will get the job. I thought very positive, but in my sentence, there was a notion that I would not really want in my reality to be rejection, my words. And Nietzsche said that in human, creature and creator are united. And when we look at what human creates and how he creates it, it's neuroscience, it's biochemistry, it's psychoanalysis, it's philosophy, it's brainwaves, it's a lot of scientific fields. But on the very practical basis, it's abracadabra, which means in Aramite, I will create with my word. When I speak, I will create. This very ancient amulet phrase is not only what magicians say on the scene, it's person, consciousness, and speech. So if I think positive and it will be positive, I say, if there is no traffic on the way, I won't be late. This is a very positive intention. But the sentence is just the opposite to my real intention, because in my sentence, I created the possibility of a traffic and being late.
Mm.
So the most practical way of this is speech, really, because we do every day, every moment, in every situation. You know, possibility that we create in our own sentence. I'm looking for a house, but I think it's hard to find a house that I would like.
Mm-hmm.
You said hard already, because without you being conscious of it, there's a great mechanism that produces the word that comes out of your mouth. And in that procedure, your being thought the hardness of finding a house. So in your reality, actually, your desires is hard to get.
Yeah, I think that there's like two different aspects. One is more, let's say, personal. When I think, like, let's say, negative thoughts or pessimistic thoughts or whatever, it changes my perception of my surrounding and my happiness and outlook and everything. But then also what you mentioned about career advancement or something. If you send an email to your boss, but subconsciously, for example, you don't really want the job because you might be feeling like you don't deserve it, maybe you do too much to take on. And I think that also like shows in the way you phrase things, whether it might be speech or I think also like written communication, which is gonna like eventually turn into feelings or emotions or whatever you want to call it on the counterpart side. Yeah, like you said, a notion of whether they actually want it and whether that would be a fit. I think that's a really good point. So speaking of different situations, like even in difficult situations, like I think the most practical example probably is what we're experiencing now and have experienced over the past 1.5 years. That was a very unexpected and extreme situation.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah.
with this whole pandemic that we've never had before. A lot of things changed. Social interactions became very, very different. What do you personally believe that people can do when faced with isolation, despair, like apart from losing a family member? I think that's a whole other level of sadness and all that to go through. But what do you think can people do with like the, let's say, quote unquote, the simple issues that come along with like lockdowns of like isolation and all that?
It's again two levels, the reality outside and your part in it, and the reality inside, and again, your comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is actually what Buddha also said, the four ways to eliminate human suffering, kind of that thing. I'm not, four rules, four principles, something like that. To be able to watch what is a skill that human, the uniquely conscious species, has to cultivate for a rather sustainable contentment in life. This is what is happening right now. What can I do about it? That should be the question. I mean, okay, I mean, there are many layers to it. What you ask is
Mm-hmm.
definitely the isolation psychology in lockdown, or what we could have done, or what we could have felt like during these last 2 years. I mean, the ultimate way of approaching to things that are unliked in our experience is okay, this is what is happening objectively, as objectively as it can be, because we all have perspectives and filters. But this is what is happening right now. I am in this condition. What can I do to make the best out of it? What is there for me to do? If there's really nothing, then do nothing. Seriously. If there is something you can do about anything for any situation, do that and then leave it.
Yeah. You're talking about general, I'd say optimism.
I mean, optimism is not a word that I would prefer. Realism, I would say, because there are millions of people, everybody with personal conditions, dynamics, situation, histories. So we cannot make a generic discussion right now about this because every one of us has emotions about this last 2 years. So I would say realism, sustainable, balanced, sincere realism.
You've put that very nicely.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, because optimism also is a new age word and it doesn't have many good
Mhm.
connotations. So, yes, realism is a much more supporting word for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree actually, now that you've put it that way.
Mm.
So since you've actually studied psychology, I can't help ask a definite question. I'm not sure whether you had seen this, but there were a lot of countries that didn't have a lockdown. People could still go out, meet people, and do like lots of things. Now we've experienced it here a bit differently, but I do notice now that the people of countries that haven't had those like an actual like lockdown, you were supposed to stay inside and not meet people and so on,
Mm-hmm.
These people seem to be like the loudest voices that are against like wearing masks, opposed to getting vaccinated. And they seem like they are almost turning paranoid. So I feel like I have to ask you, what do you think is the reason for some people to follow like COVID regulations and act with like some sort of common sense, isolate themselves, and while others are like so fiercely against any government rules and all that? What is your personal take on that?
If we look from a collective perspective, this is why for the last 6, 7 months, I'm seeing a lot of collective trauma and meetings and trainings and all of that, because we had collective process and everybody has their own reactions, everyone with many motivations, with many respectable reasons, actually.
I spoke to a friend of mine the other day, and she mentioned that she thinks that people are so extremely against those regulations and rules because, like, probably the most scared. But to me, that doesn't really make the most sense because I would think that people would rather follow it and then eventually get out of that, like, pandemic situation, and everything,
Mhm.
and get their quote unquote liberties back. But there's some people that are so fiercely opposed to everything, and then others, like, there's a huge disparity, following and trying, yeah, just trying to do their best to be part of like a solution, and I find that kind of yeah, I find it very interesting to watch that from afar, I'd say, because usually it's not as bad here as it is in some Western Central European countries.
Mhm.
I find that a very worrying movement as well.
Yes, there is a schism about it. That's
Hmm.
definitely the case, and I don't think that schism will be solved. Essentially, as far as I know, from good resources, I can share them with you if you want. The world itself, physically, has entered into a new astrological sign, but physically, it's energetically, sky-wise, it's dense since 2 years. And it would be a surprise for us humans not to be involved in that natural occurrence. And it's now politically, culturally, psychologically, definitely, collectively, individually, is going into a sharp schism. You are right.
Why do you think that movement even came to be? Like, why is there such a disparity between those two extreme sides? Is that a sort of a collective movement that people seek out because they're more isolated? They try to be a collective and then they follow the herd, like whichever is around.
I think there is a big financial part to it also, because
Mm,
during the lockdown, many people couldn't really handle the situation with their businesses, and so many shapes of businesses changed for many people. So it's a kind of something to digest, really. And as a collective, we're in a way really one. And energetically, if we look at what we added or taken from the general picture energetically, it's quite chaotic. It's not so organized.
right.
Yeah.
To me, I think that was the most surprising because I had maybe in a utopic kind of idea, but I had thought like when something really important happens, people will step up and like be as one against like a greater force that could endanger us, our species, our existence, and so on. But I've noticed that that is not the case. It's sort of drifting apart, and so that's why I had to ask
I mean,
because it's yeah.
to me, it's not unacceptable because really the numbers of vaccines were two in the beginning and now there are three, and nobody really, as far as I understand, knows if it goes to four or five, or it's uncertain. It's unclear what will be further expected from masses. People really, in face of governments and administration of this process globally, are made disempowered. They feel like, and most of the time they don't have something to say, to just speak their own truth, maybe to speak their own view.
It's definitely a huge topic to cover here. So, yeah, you've told me about like, and we've also spoken about this regarding COVID. But you told me that personal and collective empowerment is of great importance to you. Now that sounds very great and inspirational and all, and I can probably guess what you mean by personal empowerment, which of course I'm all for. But what do you mean by collective empowerment? Can you elaborate on that?
One by one, that the awareness of human in nature has a creator side, and nobody should maintain themselves disempowered toward their own realities, emotions, to their own situations. One by one, we want the individual awareness of claiming the authority of personal lives to increase. Think of it this way: if everybody keeps clean their gateways to their houses, to their buildings, the street as a whole then is much more clear and clean.
So you're saying through personal empowerment, we eventually get to collective empowerment?
I'm a meditation facilitator, and I just help the process just exactly about this thing. People should know that they have a say in their own existence. This is a like birthright of human beings. And yes, every society is a collection of individuals one by one. So yes, first individual empowerment, and then when I see you actually content and rather living a closer life to the ideal of what you have in mind, you can inspire me. And so I can be doubtful about my own disempowerment, about my own realities, I don't know, about emotions. I am feeling anxious and I cannot know what to do about it. And I am anxious about being anxious. Clean that second part, which creates my anxious there. Okay, I'm anxious, but I'm not anxious about being anxious, because that just elongates the emotional chain. You may be anxious and just acknowledge that, which goes to a healing path of that anxiety. About what am I anxious? Do I know? Yes or no? I mean, questions lead to questions and answers. This is a very personal process which can be helped, definitely, and which needs giving the brain regular silence for the process to be much more clear and open. All what we speak about is two things under our power and that are not under our power. To balance those, it is only a duty of a clever person to balance between those two. Your responsibility is everywhere in the part that is under your power. Because responsibility, you see that you may have a claim over your life, at least parts of it, and that empowers you. And that continues and continues and continues, and creating a sustainable contentment, an acceptable certain level of happiness.
We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. About your everyday work, what do you deal with in terms of expectations of people that come into your meditation room and in your practice?
In our meetings, we do meditation or as a supplementary practice to any ongoing therapy. We meditate, and after that, most of the time, we discuss about what I call inner science, which is the science of bringing about a sustainable creator self. Which is neuroscience, as I said, brainwave, psychoanalysis, biochemistry, it all goes. We make counseling or mentoring even if demanded, and we do it specifically after the silence practice, because then there is much more space for reflection. In our meetings, we discuss, we just open our minds to maybe different perceptions, to maybe unasked questions before. It's very liberal, it's very personal. It doesn't have a specific structure that we cling on.
So you said about meditation, and before you also said that the brain needs quiet time or in silence. Why is that your focus?
I searched about silence and quiet, the difference of the words last day, actually. Silence means no voice. Quiet means a little voice. So there's some speech in quiet, but silence doesn't speak at all. So there's a distinction, I guess, that has to be made here. We don't want a silence mind. We want a quiet mind, because we know the mind is structured to be functioning, thinking, active, responding, reacting. The mind should be thinking. It's its function, just like our hands has functions. We want it to be trained to work slower sometimes and more quiet inner volume, so that the mind and its concepts and its meaning structures and its whatever the status quo in that mind is, we want it not domineering over our conscious wills and notions, because sometimes we want to change and we want to break or create a new habit. And the mind is a so strong unit that wants to survive and insist on the way it did for these much years. Not to turn it into a battle between the conscious us and the already for years working mind, for it not to be a battle, but a compromise rather. We train this bundle of muscles, which we call brain, we train it to become more available for our directions, just like our hands and feet, which are inactive when we don't need them. It's like we want to become people that think when we need to really think, because our mind is an incredibly capacity full faculty, and it doesn't have a user's manuscript, it doesn't have a user's guide. To make our relationship to ourselves more healthy and balanced, its first address to go is our mind. And we give silence to the brain regularly, every day ideally, but once in 2 days is a good amount. The mind starts to learn, even if it doesn't want in the beginning, when we insist with conscious effort, look, my dear mind, this much years you worked and I listened to you and I served you. Now things can change because I want to create new stuff in my life. Think differently, see differently, react a bit differently. So come, let's get quiet a little while. Let's this be our new habit, that sometimes you are not speaking so loud, but you are learning to listen for a while, not to answer, just to be aware. There is a lot ways to go about meditation. Maybe this was not the most efficient way to choose right now. If your brain functions well, you function well. And there's a great neuroscience behind meditation. And that's just about the chemistry balancing in the brain. That's nothing else, merely.
Right. What do most people come to you with? Like, what sort of topic or something that they want to work on, or a personal issue? What do you think is the most common, or what do you see most nowadays?
Emotionally, there is maybe a discord sometimes. There is a thing that maybe, I mean, in any decision that cannot be made properly, any process of transformation from anything to anything, I mean, mentally, physically, or environmentally, situation wise, any kind of dissatisfaction, any kind of disempowerment, any kind of unwanted occurrences, like continued occurrences in relationships, in career, in, I don't know, overall well-being. I mean, what we say is you can be generally overall well, and if you are not, you have a chance to be if you want. If you feel really emotionally unstable, there is a way to make it stable. You can understand yourself indeed. You don't have to be afraid of different versions of you, because every one of you is you. Every version of yourself is a part of you. You can be in peace with yourself. You can definitely contribute to much better realities with your conscious speech and thinking and nutrition, because really intestines are the second brain. So we talk about all these, and our overall quotation, which began all my research for these 8 years, is Nietzsche's "Inhuman creature and creator are united." So it can be very large for everyone. This can mean many things for everyone. But overall, what it comes down to is you can have a say. You do have a say in your life, even if you accept it or not, even if you know it or not. Every breath in and every breath out, you have an electromagnetic quality that surrounds you, which is said to be 6 meters from us. The quality of that subtle energy space is created by you. So any reality of yours is not really something to blame the world totally. And generally, if we look as effect and cause, the cause is mostly the person and the effect is the experience. It's not life caused us to that fill in the blanks. It's us, because we were such, we may have contributed to this reality. So what's to look in the situation is rather us, the focus of investigation is the person himself, not and blaming the world, blaming things for our emotions and conditions is the easiest, and most of us are very used to it. We want to shift this cause and effect relation. You see that you may be the cause of this reality, maybe of your emotion. He said this and he made me feel like this. No, you choose your reality. First, let's get clear on that. And this is not me, this is Confucius saying this. Reactions are definitely choices. If you feel definitely not able to choose your reaction, let's slow down and smooth the brain a little bit. Let's give some silence regularly for this destructive order to calm down a little bit and get into balance back. So you can most of the time actually cannot blame the world for your conditions. There is so less facts that you can really blame. I mean, I didn't choose to be in lockdown all these last year. This was not my choice. Yes, definitely. It's not your choice. It's something that was not under your power. So leave that as is not right now. Try to see what you can do about that. You are or alone or married with children or with your cat and dog in the house. This is your situation. Accept it. First accept it really. Acknowledge. Then see how the process can go. But let's do all of this focus within a surrounding a practice of something about the mind, because in every process that you get into, you are there with your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a large topic. I hope it was an effective way to talk about it.
What would you say, what you wish for, maybe for people that can come to you and seek out your help or assistance? What do you wish for more people, like generally, would reflect upon more, do for themselves? Maybe that would help them become happier or more balanced in
Yes,
their lives?
commitment and consistency, definitely. With me or with not, or with any kind of facilitator or with themselves. What I see with many people I work with, and we discuss about it a lot, and I do change the situation, which is happy. First time sitting quiet, second time, fourth time. When it comes to, I mean, we definitely generally meditate for 10, 15 minutes in each meeting, 2, 3 times a week. When it comes to having meditated for 2 hours in total, people do feel the change in themselves and realize that they're afraid of it actually. They wanted to change. I mean, any change can happen. They were working in such place and they got to be working in the place they wanted, let's say. And the situation changed, okay, but they themselves changing. Sometimes people stop there and want to give up the practice, but that's because the progress is occurring actually. So there, what all the person's being wants is consistency and will, motivated will, because you are doing something to better anything. When it is getting available to be better, you are not there. Or what you wanted was not real, or you cheated on yourself as you thought you wanted but you didn't, or you are just new to things and mind feels threatened so quickly. Mind wants the habitual. Mind wants to be in what it is used to always. So anything new to the conscious person and to the mind with all its structure is something to be unsure of. Maybe that's not right. Look, don't continue this practice, and because we are changing totally, and this is something not safe. I mean, there is a mechanism that try people to stop and give up any habit that they want to create. So we want commitment and consistency, because commitment is rewarded and ambivalence is not. And if we are sure we want things, let's be there for real.
Yeah, I could picture people being sometimes maybe frightened when they actually want to change something, and when they see it happen, that might be frightening too at first.
Because when you start changing, seeing your relationships, for instance, you were reactive once to things in your relationship, any relationship, familial, any kind of relationship. Your perception changes, and the world around you now is not ready for this new perception. And That's why Jean-Paul Sartre, in his book Human Emotions and Existentialism, tells that you have to free in order to be free. Now you're changing, but who you were within the relationship is the same, and now you have to modify. I mean, it's a nice connections of all varieties of you in the center and everything about your life surrounding you. It's like a kick-on effect.
Yeah, there's got to be a process that follows the change afterwards, right?
Yes. And if you embrace that change and if you claim that change, you want that change. You said you wanted that change, and now the change is on the way. There is progress. So you have to be there. Conscious efforts.
Right. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, do you have any tips for our listeners on what they can do for themselves that will sort of improve their outlook, their life? Like a simple tip that you would give out to our listeners?
Yes, definitely there would be. I hear so much. I give not as homework, but as meditation is a very personal space, and I only help people to learn how to get to that space. And then after a few meetings, I do ask people to personally meditate and then come to the meeting and let's talk about how your experience was. So many comments on that are, I tried, I cannot stop my mind from thinking. I put the music, but I can't concentrate. I can't. There is nothing to arrive at in this practice. I mean, there is no specific goal you have to reach at. That's daily life. We do everything, we think, we feel, we decide, we do everything in our daily lives already. Let this practice be your space of being simply, and you want to be open to the flow inside and outside you equally. As much as you don't try to shut up the bird that's singing outside, you don't want to fight off your thoughts and leave now. My mind should be clear of thoughts now. Shh, be quiet. I want to clear. I am meditating. I am om. No, accept that your mind right now is thinking. Don't expect your mind to do something. Accept yourself to accept that you are thinking and expect from yourself to choose not to be thinking. You are there sitting, yes, definitely comfortably, because as long as the body is comfortable, the mind has space to get too comfortable. That's okay. Be comfortable. Why you focus on breathing is the very reason that it's your core. It's the only thing that links you to your life. And as long as it is there, you are life. So your breathing, if it is in a natural pace, which is ideal, is your general real rhythm. Your rhythm is your breathing. So that's why it's the easiest thing to focus on in meditation. You can focus on the car sound, you can focus on a baby crying, you can focus on an ant walking on the grass. You can focus on the locations of the moon and the sun. During meditation, your area of focus is from the sun to the moon to your breath. That's that large, that much area is belonging to the present at that moment, and you can focus on anything that is occurring at that moment, at that time. When you choose your focus, when you realize that your focus is again going to thoughts, that every day you think of things, what you will buy, what you have to do, what was that meeting today like, why did he tell you that? When you realize that, don't fight it, because this is what is happening for years now. Try a little bit of understanding to how your mind functions. Expect from yourself, not from your mind. Expect from yourself to accept and just ignore it. I am not serving these thoughts right now because that's what I do all these years. Now I am willing to create a new habit, which is focusing my attention to where I want. Meditation is attention training. It's nothing else. So there's nothing you have to be doing. There's no shape that your mind has to take. There's nowhere to arrive. Oh, yesterday's meditation was awful. I couldn't succeed anything. You don't sit there to succeed anything. Please be soft to yourself. That would be really a core understanding, because we want to clean what meditation means. That's why I call it quiet sitting. Meditation is just a generic word which means contemplation, and this doesn't mean anything specific. What we want is generally specific, very specific, being an observer to what is happening inside and outside. Oh, I'm thinking about the red shoe right now. Okay, good. I noticed this. I congratulate myself. But right now, what I'm doing is not getting carried with my thoughts. What I'm doing is choosing any focus that belongs to now, because the time frame now is what the mind is most afraid of, indeed, because there is nothing to interpret about now. There is a lot to think about the oncoming future. I mean, not yet occurred future. And what about the past? There's so a lot to interpret, so a lot to give meaning to, so a lot to ask, so a lot to judge. Now it's already occurring. You cannot judge it.
It does become easier to quiet the mind after a while.
Don't expect yourself to become such a cultivated consciousness in two practices. Give yourself time, give your mind time, give the process some time. Know that there is a strong unit that will insist on surviving the old version of you. But if you, as the conscious you, as the motivated and willing you, will insist on regularly injecting to your being the new version of a self, which also listens not to always react to, but just to first understand and then choose how you react to anything, that's safe.
It looks like we've almost reached the end of our episode already. It feels like we've only been talking for 3 minutes. Can you tell us, Melisa, where can people follow you or Alpha Space? Can they find you on social media or on the web?
Yes, our Instagram account is new but growing slowly. Alpha Space line and zero. It wanted a zero from me. I don't know why. I'm very new to Instagram. I just opened an account with Alpha Space, and on Facebook we have a Facebook page as Alpha Space. And when we have events or when we do have weekly reminders of any kind of philosophical approach to all what we speak, we update there.
Perfect. This was incredibly interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your expert opinion. Thanks, Melisa.
Thank you so much for your questions. It was nice to be with you, Nina.
My pleasure.